You know, it's the same book, and that's what people get confused by. So this is another book. No, that was, and I think it's the smartest thing that Denis did was say, let's break this up, you know, and not overwhelm people with too much information. And it allows for quiet, and it allows for, I don't know, for lack of a better word, spiritual kind of growth that he's going through, that Paul's going through. But at this point, you don't know. You don't know what's happened. You don't know who's still alive. You don't know who died in the first one, whether it's me, whether it's everybody. So you get these people, you know, recoalescing and having these incredible emotional reactions to each other. And then ultimately, I think the first half was more of an introductory story, whereas I think this is about somebody truly growing into maturity. And it's something that we can all identify with because it happens earlier for some, later for others. But it's like the power of your own individuality at what, you know, what process do you go through in order to accept that and live in the integrity of who you are. And we're all unique, you know what I mean? And like some people have that ability, that power to, I don't know, to engage or power to attract or something like that. And some people don't have that. And you watch Paul struggle through all this stuff, and you have to go through all this kind of pain in order to self-reflection and all that to get there. But when he finally gets there, it's a special moment. It's about a boy graduating into manhood. It's about a human being becoming fully themselves. And that it's not a lonely, it can be a lonely process, but you're not alone because it takes a village. Do you know what I mean? And you don't realize that until you've arrived. So yeah, all these characters, I think more than any other story I've ever been involved with, all these characters are essential to his coming to terms with himself. She's one of the coolest people I've ever met. You know, I've seen a couple of her films. You know, which I always like seeing. She's fun. She has a lot of energy. She's like got a lot of adolescent energy, and it's great. And then you see these movies where she can tap into emotion at will, and it's very, very powerful, psychically powerful, emotionally powerful. I have a lot of respect for that woman. When somebody's a good actor and they bring little subtleties, so like we were doing a scene and, you know, all of us are subject to kind of being out of character at times, you know, and then you're reminded that's what a good director's for, to go, like, what are you doing? Like, you know, are you in Hawaii? Like, where are you? And then you go back into these idiosyncrasies that you developed before you started, and some work and some don't, and then you refine it with the director and all that. And Javier slows everything down. He did this great, it was a great character choice. And so we were doing the scene together, and he did it a couple of times, and I was like, no, that's not Stilgar. And then there was a tweak, and then he went into this place, and it's just like listening to Hans's music. It's like something just flows perfectly, and you're like, that's the perfect character for this guy. Like nobody could play this better than him right now. Yeah, so he's great. He's very rare, man. He's a very rare individual, you know. I have a crazy amount of respect for him, and I love him as a human being, you know. And his, you know, watch him direct, you know, and you have your technical expertise or your skills and all that, and then you have an ability to see a story all the way through, and then you have another ability, which usually you don't find all of them in the same director, of being able to demand more of your actors in a way that truly works for your film, as opposed to throwing ego at somebody because you're the director and you want to have an impact. There's something that he is going for that we all trust, that ultimately, even though I may argue with him sometimes, that ultimately is going to make a better film. I love her. I just think she was one of the best things in the first film. She blew me away when I saw the film. She was a standout for me. I thought what she did was extremely powerful, very, very open, very human, very believable. Yeah, so working with her is a pleasure, you know, because you get to see, it's not very often you're with people. We were talking about it earlier with different actors, you know. The coming to terms with myself at 45 was realizing that I was a film geek and that it was okay to be a nerd. Do you know what I mean? And I do. I love cinema and I love film and I love storytelling and I love, you know, anything that revolves around the human condition and what challenges that and all that kind of stuff. And that's what I see in her. You know, she's one of those actresses that she can tap into the idiosyncrasies that most of us can't really see, and then she exploits it through her acting. And she's a special actress, man. It's huge because they're using this practical base and being able to accentuate it, you know, and that's kind of the point. You know, otherwise it's like, and I did it. I did the Marvel thing, you know, and that was practical for me because I did that performance. But then you see and you're like, oh wow, so they've done this whole thing, and that was really spectacular. But there's nothing about this to me that doesn't feel, again, intimate and personal. There's not that once removed kind of awe. It's always some version of an intimate awe, you know, always character kind of, and that was the same thing with Sicario. It was the same thing with all those movies that Denis has done. Arrival is like it's one of those movies, I've always felt the same way about when Tom Waits was releasing albums. Like I'd hear it and I'd go, yeah, that's kind of the same. And then you listen to it again, then you listen to it again, then you listen to it again, and it just gets more brilliant and it's revealed the more you watch it. In Arrival, I saw it and I was like, yeah, I like that. And then I saw it again, and then I saw it. Now I've seen it probably 5 or 6 times. And it's a fantastic movie that never doesn't feel personal. You can't have an initial experience on a small screen with a story this epic. You have to be immersed. There is no feeling that I remember that has been better or more profound to me at a young age when the lights would go down and that music would start and that first image would come up. It's a transport, you know. It's what we all want to feel. It's that magic that happens that can't happen anywhere else. You end up pausing and then you have to go get the other hand of potato chips, you know what I mean? Whereas in the movie, like, yeah, I guess it can sort of happen, but those moments in a movie that time becomes elusive and it's suddenly over and you don't want it to be over because you want to stay with that experience that you've had. That's a special thing that can only happen in a movie theater.